All right, good day, everyone. My name is Daniel Chiu. I'm a senior principal engineer in the VxRail Technical Marketing team. I'm also joined by Travis Zhao from the product management team, and he'll be helping with answering questions that you may have throughout the presentations. Definitely appreciate that this presentation and this agenda is is based on Pacific time because it really helps me out to start the day. But let's start with the session. In the session, you'll learn about how we are enhancing the VxRail lifecycle management experience by introducing VMware vLCM compatibility. And this compatibility will allow our customers to have more flexibility and capability in performing cluster updates, while still maintaining what they value most in the VxRail clusters, which is being in this continuously validated state. All right, so Ash alluded to the VxRail HCI system software, and this is really where the VxRail advantage really comes from. It's the software that allows us to differentiate in areas like lifecycle management and really extend those benefits through our VxRail API and SaaS multi-cluster management to apply to more use cases and scale management to multiple VxRail clusters more easily. But at its core, the customers are really buying VxRail because of the lifecycle management experience through continuously validated states. And how we deliver it's really through our extensive investment in testing and validating the HCI stack to produce this electronic compatibility matrix, which I'll talk about next. The connector service in VxRail HCI system software establishes the communication to vSphere, vSAN, vCenter, and PowerEdge server through iDRAG. So the cluster is managed as a single system for streamlined automation and orchestration. So as you can probably tell, I've been talking about continuously validated states a lot because it is a big deal to us and really to our customers. Because even as we add new capability to LCM, we're not changing the core component of what differentiates VxRail from others. All right, so what is a validated state? It's basically a golden image for the entire HCI stack. This is kind of the quote unquote happy state where a user knows that all the software, firmware, drivers in the cluster are compatible with one another, and it can interoperate to provide that optimal performance for those applications running on the clusters while still being secure. So achieving a happy state requires research and testing. And since a happy state can really evolve over time because you're constantly updating, this type of work, this endeavor to kind of constantly research and test, it's also a risky activity. So whenever users are making configuration changes to the production environment, that work is constant and the risk continues. So the choice is really whether, as a customer, you choose to bear this responsibility and invest in the time, the resources, in the knowledge gathering, while really preserving that flexibility on what you want to run on the cluster. Or you would rather offload this responsibility and devote your resources somewhere else, like application development or IT as a service type of projects. The VxRail business delivers or devotes 100 plus personnel, $60+ million in testing resources, as well as 25,000 testing hours per release. So for VxRail customers, they're gladly choosing the latter option of allowing VxRail to do that because it's a simpler way to manage infrastructure. And the chart here on the slide is an example of what the VxRail team delivers for every EXI release. So I believe this one on the slide is 47300, which supports EXI 6.7 update 3. So whether it's an express patch or regular patch, which happens quarterly, or a major update that VMware is introducing new software features in an EXI release, VxRail is going to deliver a software bundle that's validated against all the hardware configurations that are available in the VxRail offerings.
Can you say what the latest VMware update release is supported now by VxRail?
I believe that there was an express patch that happened last month. So our policy is we support patches or any EXI release within 1 month of its release. Express patches, we try to do that within 2 weeks, whereas major software updates, we do it within a month. believe the latest VxRail release for 7.0 happened probably just last month, so we're probably supporting it right as of now. So
okay.
In terms of a software release, a major software release, update 2 came out, I believe, last quarter, and we were supporting it within 1 month. So with a validated state, each time a user has the option of selecting the next target version. And they know that the target version is a validated state, so they have the choice of skipping releases, because not for each cluster, it really depends on what applications they're running on it for them to select that next target version. They don't have to update every single time VxRail produces a release, because it may not apply to their particular cluster. So they have the ability to skip releases if they need to. We provide that flexibility for them. And after that cluster update, that target version is now that current validated state. And as clusters move along its life cycle, customers are confident that their applications are running safely and optimally, while really taking advantage of VxRail's latest software features, or the latest security patches that there has been a few related to vCenter of late in the past couple of months. So they're always going to be able to get to a release that they feel confident that they want to run on those clusters. All right, so let's talk about the compatibility. So we're enhancing the VxRail LCM experience by introducing this compatibility with vLCM, which leverages vLCM's APIs and its framework to perform cluster updates, or what they call remediation in vLCM terms. So our tagline when it comes to being better together with VMware is that VxRail is built with VMware for VMware and to enhance VMware. And this compatibility with vLCM really aligns well with that tagline. Even when vLCM was introduced in vSphere 7.0 last year, I believe February or March, it was never a question of which automation or orchestration is better. Rather, it's really the distinct difference that continuously validated states is what separates VxRail when it comes to LCM. So we're porting that continuously validated states into the vLCM framework such that the desired state is the continuously validated state. So as customers move from one desired state to the next with VxRail, they're continuously validated states. Introducing this compatibility is a gateway to leverage current vLCM benefits and really to put VxRail in a position to enhance future capabilities that's going to be offered from vLCM. But that said, users have the option to enable vLCM compatibility. They don't have to do it right now, but there are going to be use cases right now where it makes sense for some customers to enable vLCM. For others, they may want to wait till the capability set within vLCM to kind of grow and for VxRail to take advantage of those. Then they may want to enable it in the future. We provide that flexibility, that option for them to do that. But let's take a look at what the current benefits of the vLCM compatibility will provide to customers. Currently, users can use vLCM to update clusters VxRail software, NXXT, vSphere Tanzu, the SVM OS, all in a single boot cycle. Sure, not all clusters have all that, but for a few customers, they're definitely going to benefit or enjoy that additional operational simplicity. And also immensely the time saving is going to provide by consolidating all these updates into one cycle. Another vLCM feature that VxRail will be introducing is the ability to pause and resume cluster updates. And this is going to be beneficial for clusters that has a lot of nodes, but not enough time within a single maintenance window to do a full cluster update. So for customers, they now have the option to target a set of nodes within the cluster, maybe a set of nodes that's tied to a particular application, and update that first. Then wait a little bit later in the future and update the remaining nodes in that cluster in a separate maintenance window. So more optionality, more flexibility for them.
So Daniel,
Yep.
we had heard yesterday that PowerStore apps on and all that stuff can coexist with VxRail, and in fact do coexist fairly well with VxRail. how does this LCM or vLCM interoperate with, PowerStore functionality or other non-VxRail cluster nodes and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, in terms of lifecycle management, it's really impacting just the HCI stack. So as for PowerStore, they would still have to lifecycle manage through their type of management stack, in which they would have to interface with their element manager to perform the updates. I believe in the a little bit down further in the agenda, we could be talking about dynamic nodes in which there will be can use VxRail as essentially as a compute cluster for PowerStore, and that will for PowerStore T. So that will provide that optionality where you can really kind of make use of the LCM experience for VxRail as a compute cluster, but at the same time you can also take advantage of some of the PowerStore type of enterprise level storage array features, such as snapshots, replication, that stuff. But in terms of LCM, you'll still be going through PowerStore to do that.
All right, thanks.
Right. So enabling vLCM for continuously validated states. From VxRail Manager, users will have the option for their clusters to be vLCM compatible. From the updates page, under settings, you can click the enable button and it'll just begin a simple workflow. And I'll show you in the next bits of this slide. First, you will need to enter the vCenter server administrator and root credentials, which is fairly simple. This is something that we do for cluster updates as well. VxRail will then scan and confirm that the cluster is in a continuously validated state before proceeding. So that scan will take a couple of minutes to do. And the final step is really porting that validated state into the vLCM framework so that it becomes that new baseline image. So in just a few steps, user can enable vLCM for continuously validated states. Now this piece, the enabling piece, is just a one-time event. The cluster update process is what customers will have basically constant exposure to. So I'm going to get into that in the next slide. So even with vLCM compatibility, I've talked about the continuously validated state. This is still a VxRail-driven experience with the continuously validated states. Some vCenter users may prefer the option to manage their own desired states and do their own research, identify their version stack, gather the install files, then test and validate against their own environment. And there's a benefit in that because they can get more flexibility in what they can run in their clusters, taking advantage of the automation and orchestration provided by vLCM. But that's one way. But there are many HCI users who want that operational simplicity and certainty. Basically that easy button, where all that work is done for them. All they have to do is select the next target version, and they can have it all in a single bundle. So this update advisor that you see on the screen here is also something that we're introducing in the next software version as well, to inform our customers what are the available update paths, including the component versions within. Essentially, it's a two-step process in VxRail that provides that level of operational simplicity backed by continuously validated states. And with the vLCM compatibility, that single update bundle populates the desired state image, just like what vCenter users use today for cluster updates with vLCM.
So, Daniel, this is Pietro here. Just a confirmation, I understood correctly. So, when vLCM is integrated with the VxRail own LCM, what happens is that a stack upgrade is triggered, and vLCM takes care of upgrading the VMware software stack, and at the same time piggybacks into the VxRail LCM to get the desired state image at the hardware level, so that the firmware and the BIOSes are fully compatible with the desired state in the VMware side of things. Is that right?
Yeah, essentially, from the whole experience is still coming straight through VxRail Manager. The desired state image is what VxRail delivers, because that's essentially the continuously validated state. So whenever the VxRail user selects a target version, they get a continuously validated state in a single update bundle. That gets populated into the desired state image. So the framework is the VLCM, but what is delivered and how we maintain that level of cluster integrity is still maintained by VxRail. So in that sense, we're making use of the VLCM framework, but still really maintaining that level of cluster integrity that, for VxRail users, that's what they kind of come to know with what they get with VxRail.
Sure, that's clear. I mean, cluster integrity at the hardware level. This is what you mean. But what we're getting here is the synergy between the integrity of the hardware level and the software stack level at the VMware, from the VMware point of view, both at the same time.
Yeah. So that desired state image is going to have the EXXI version. So that continuously validated state is basically tested against and validated against that EXXI version. So you have that level of the software and hardware in that continuously validated state. Yes. Moving on to how does the cluster update process look like? It's really not that different. So let's take a look through it, and I'll walk you through. So with a VxRail user, what they will do is they run that pre-check, preferably well in advance, so they know whether the cluster is ready for an update. If it's not, they have the time to fix the issue ahead of the maintenance window. They may even use pre-check as more of a planning tool in which they'll run it before they schedule the maintenance window, because the ones that actually pass it, they know it's like, okay, they can schedule the maintenance window anytime they want. And the ones that don't, maybe they want to wait a little bit longer before they schedule that maintenance window. So the pre-check does give some, there's some things there's different things you can do to use it. Next, leveraging the VLCM framework, we've added drift detection. So we can analyze and inform about the delta between the current continuously validated state that's running on the cluster and the target or the desired continuously validated state that you want to update the cluster to. In this release, we're also providing the option to customize the desired state with non-VxRail managed component drivers like the fiber channel HBA. And I believe Don's going to get into that a little bit further, a little bit later in today's agenda.
Well, I was just going to say, so drift's been detected. Does it take it back to the desired state automatically, or is that something someone has to dive in to change?
For this scenario, drift detection is what you kind of expect because you're trying to update the cluster. It's just basically telling you what will be updated for you to get from that current version to that next version.
Okay. But in my case, if it drifted due to other reasons or people just not doing the right thing, how does it work then?
Yeah, so there's a feature that we call a compliance checker in which you can actually run that anytime they want. It's not just during the cluster update process, they can run it throughout, but it is something that where sometimes there is going to be someone that's a rogue administrator that may update it, and that unbeknownst to some others, it will detect it, and depending on what it is, it could be easily remediated or it might require support. It really depends on what has been changed, it happens, and this compliance checker will definitely help spot those issues before spot those that change before it really becomes an issue. Hopefully.
Yeah. Thanks.
So I just want to make sure that it's the same as it was before. So the updates, VxRail customers have to wait for y'all to do all the testing and run the updates and bundle them together, and then they can download those, and then they go through all these steps, and they also get to load in their own additional things. That's pretty cool. But
yeah, Gina. So we've added this area where you can upload the drivers like the fiber channel HPA, and it kind of it helps out because we're not saying that we're validating against that driver, but we're allowing them to add these things on so they can actually be part of that single boot cycle. So it really helps out in terms of time savings. But in terms of testing and making sure that it is part of the the VMware HCL, that's really up to the customer customer's responsibility to do. But we're providing that option which they can kind of layer on top of that update so they can do it all together at once. So once you add the non-VxRail managed drivers, that's an option. Then you also have the ability to also consolidate those VMware updates that I talked about in a couple slides ago. You can separately load the NXXT, vSphere with Tanzu, or other VSVM OS updates separate from the VxRail Manager. And once that's done, from VxRail Manager, you can kick it off, and it will basically signal vLCM to basically update all that's loaded for remediation. So except for configuring the VMware updates, the customers are always within this VxRail Manager LCM experience. All right, so the practice of continuously validated states ensures the desired states in VLCM are validated. So making the VxRail-driven LCM compatible with VLCM introduces these new capabilities to enhance the VxRail experience. So now when preparing for a cluster update, the update advisor provides that list of available target versions. A single update bundle and the cluster readiness pre-check will put that customer on the right path. When it comes to executing the update, it now includes drift detection and the option to add those non-VxRail managed components into a single update cycle, including NXXT, Tanzu, or VSVM OS updates. So all within a single boot cycle really introduces a lot of time savings if you have that many updates and you have the ability to consolidate it into a single boot cycle. But with any cluster, that's only part of the management battle, because maintaining cluster integrity throughout is important too. VxRail will also be introducing that compliance checker, which I just talked about, which checks the cluster against the continuously validated states. And it will basically allow the customers to really evolve their clusters over time. The practice of continuously validated states will allow their applications to run non-disruptively, even through software changes, such as running through all these EXXI. When those EXXI releases come, whether they're security patches or they're major updates with new software features, you can take advantage of it.
Hey, Daniel,
Yes, right.
do customers typically test their VxRail nodes after an update, or they just go ahead and start running production directly on those solutions? I'm trying to understand whether this is well-oiled machine, or is this just making things a lot easier for the customer, but in the end, the customer does some validation as well?
Well, customers can run their own validation, really is up to, but a lot of people are confident that once they update, they're good to go. But there are going to be customers that are going to have their own practice or their own protocols within their own IT department, in which they need to do some type of basic or fundamental testing before they go live with it. They may choose to have another cluster that they want to test it out first before they do it. But in the large part, we feel confident that if they update to the next state, they're good to go. It's really up to the customers to see where they are in terms of their IT practices and where the confidence level is, because they also have to manage risk from their own end as well.
Right. Okay, thanks.
So maintain cluster integrity. So going through hardware changes, software changes, or even mixing different generations of hardware. With continuously validated states, it allows you to do that. So you can add in the latest 15G Intel-based VxRail platforms that were introduced last month, and you'll still be able to do this while keeping the cluster running up and the applications running non-disruptively. So this is essentially VxRail LCM, now with vLCM compatibility. So let me know if you have any questions, but this is essentially a presentation on this topic. If you have more questions, there are some URLs that you can get to.